So what we're trying to get out of this is to have the best starting point possible when we go to do the actual retouching later. We're not trying to do any like fancy color toning or getting any crazy contrast or anything like that. Just creating the cleanest possible start point. We want to have a nice histogram, good white balance, nice highlight and shadow detail. Not too much contrast because you usually add that in Photoshop later. So to start, what I'm going to do is start with the white balance. Sometimes what I like to do is kind of start with the white balance tool. You're supposed to click on a neutral area and then it adjusts the tone, adjusts the color of the image to neutralize the white balance. But I like to also use these a bit, just kind of fiddle around, make sure that what Photoshop thinks is a good white balance I agree with. So probably about right there, I think looks nice. Let's see. Yeah. See, there's kind of a magenta-ish red cast before that I got rid of. Next, what I like to do is actually zero out all of Photoshop stuff, because I prefer to do this with a curve rather than their kind of sliders, their brightness, blacks and contrast sliders. So I have a preset for this, but I'm just going to walk you through it. So all zeros here. And then for the curve, we're going to zero that out by going to linear. No sharpening because I do a lot of dodge and burn, and that tends to make more work for dodge and burn. Some people do input sharpening, but I don't. I save it all for the end. And this noise reduction is really great. In CS4 wasn't as good. I used Noise Ninja plugin, but now that CS5, they just seem to have really improved it. And these default settings are really great and natural, so I'll leave that as it is. Next, what I want to do is start with just dialing in the curve. Let's see. I'm going to bring up the midpoint here, the gamma, walk in the darks a bit, and I'm going to bring in that shadow point to make sure that that histogram ends at the right point, right at the edge. That's good. I usually fiddle with this for maybe 4 or 5 minutes, but I'm probably going to go a little quicker since I have more limited time here. And what I'm really doing is trying to get the skin to look really good right now, the skin and the clothes, but not the beanie, because that's kind of it reflected a lot of the flash that I had. So I'm going to do a separate raw conversion just for the beanie to get detail back from it, but I don't have to worry about that now. So I'm just kind of pulling out where I think it'll look best. There we go. Looking good. Not too dark. If I was in Photoshop, I might bring it down, to about here, get it nice and dark. But when you do a raw conversion, you're not trying to make it look all contrasty and nice. You're just trying to get a lot of detail out of it. So I go a little bit less than I normally do it in Photoshop. I think that looks pretty good. Okay. So next I am going to start to take out some of the red cast in his skin. So I'm going to go to the HSB sliders. If you do this, bring over the red a bit, and it looks like kind of, oh, whoops, this is saturation. Let's go to hue here. See how it can kind of neutralize that red. Sometimes it'll look a little washed out. If they look washed out, then I like to use this hue slider instead, but it looks good here, so I'm just going to leave that. And then I like to take the orange slider down a little bit because Photoshop doesn't have an orange slider. You can make one by dragging the hue range bar under the hue saturation adjustment layer a bit, but it's just easier to do here. There we go, looks good. Yeah, so that skin's looking pretty nice. The beanie's obviously, ridiculously blown out, but that's okay. And then what I like to do is check my values a bit just with the contrast, see maybe if they're a little bit more, but now I like where it was. Yeah, probably about maybe a little tiny bit of a boost. Looks good. And now I'm going to go, this is new to CS6, which is great, CS5, which is great, which is the lens correction. It somehow knows your model of camera you use and your focal length and everything, and automatically corrects it, and I like to pump it up because it does a great job. You can kind of see. It does a good job. And then I actually want to do a little bit more because I noticed some barrel distortion with this. I want to neutralize a bit, just a little bit. And I'm going to pull the crop down just to not want too much room up there. Okay. Okay, like that. Let's see. From there, I think I'm pretty happy with how that skin looks. I'm going to open this into Photoshop. If you just clicked open image, it would convert it into a PSD, and you'd lose the ability to go back and edit the raw data, which has a lot more in the linear curve and everything. So I'm going to hold down Shift, and then it changes to open object. So I'm going to click that. And this allows us to go back. It's a smart object, so it's kind of linked back to that raw file. It's kind of has a connection, and you can get back to it by clicking on here in the layer panel, the layer icon there. You double click and you'll be back in the raw file. You can edit some more. So we want to do another conversion, but if you just do the standard way by dragging it down here and copying the layer by dropping it onto the new layer icon, it will just be like a duplicate layer and they'll be linked. If you change one of the settings on one, it'll change on the other. So the way that you get a second raw file you can edit independently of the first is you right click and go to new smart object via copy. And so this is our own second raw file. So now I'm going to go in here. And I don't really like recovery that much. I just don't like how it works. It tends to lower contrast in the highlights, so I like to just do it with another curve. So I'm just going to bring it down a bit here, and I'm just looking at the beanie now. Just trying to get that detail back. A nice kind of. There you go. Looks good. I'm getting blue. That's okay, we can fix that. Okay, so now I'm just going to go to the HSB slider and start neutralizing. Probably some aqua and blue. That looks good. And up in here, it's totally blown out. There's no hope. All hope is lost for this area, so we're going to have to do some trickery later to kind of pull some texture probably from a high frequency layer and overlay it and bring in some grays to neutralize that. But for now, that's okay. So I think this is good for the second conversion. So now it's applying those settings. Now I'm just going to hold down Alt and click on this Create Layer Mask icon, and then it will hide the entire layer. And then I go paint with white where I want it. And I'm just using my mouse here because I'm feeling a little lazy to get the tablet, so that's okay. Because a lot of these edits can be done with the mouse. If you're a mouse user out there, this is your tutorial. There we go. Get a little closer here. Because it's a mask, you can use X to switch between white and black color. And just paint it where you need it. White paints the effect while you have the mask targeted, and white hides it, and black hides it. Okay. I got the detail back in the hat there, or the beanie there. Let's see. Not too much. There, I think that looks good, 86%. So I'm going to do one final conversion for the irises. I'm going to use the bottom file to do the copy, just because the top one's a bit funky after we did all that. The white point lowering and all that. Oops. See, if you click on the wrong spot, you'll open the layer style dialog box. I gotta click on the picture to do it right. So now I'm just gonna go zoom into the irises and check this out, and I'm gonna see how I can bring out some detail. Just because once you have a PSD, then you lose all that extra data that's in the raw file, and I want to get every little juicy drop of it out. There we go. All the detail in his eyes, because it's also going to be the focal point of the image, so it's important to have them be something that's fun for the viewer to look at. So I hit it again with Alt-clicking on the layer mask icon, and now I'm just going to go in and paint it just on the iris. Hit X to pick black. I'm just fine-tuning it a bit. There we go. It looks like he's about to blast us with laser eyes, or he's blind or something, so let's tone that down a bit. Just want to enjoy that extra detail. And you usually get much better results later in Photoshop by darkening something than lightening it. Because lightening it, you bring out all kinds of noise and stuff, so I'm just using this extra raw data to make sure I have plenty to work with in those eyes later. Still looks a little fake, but I'd rather have more to work with than less. So that's how I'd start the raw conversion. I'm going to do, in the next tutorial, I'll do more local color correction. Like in the neck here, I see some red, and we'll need to do some cloning, get rid of some of this stuff. And then after that comes dodge and burn. And from there, sharpening and luminosity masking and then sharpening. So, and I just want to show you, I'm going to do one more copy here so I can show you what it would have looked like if you just started with a JPEG or one conversion with default settings. Oops, click the wrong, there we go, on the picture. Okay, so I'm going to pick my preset for camera raw defaults. You can see the difference we have here. So here is what you'd have if you took a JPEG. And here's our version that we get to start with. Just, a little bit more detail, a little bit lower contrast, and it almost has a weird kind of slightly HDR, fake HDR look because of the dynamic range is lowered. But don't worry, we'll definitely get rid of that later. With Photoshop, it'll be really razor sharp and crisp. But now we have all this detail to work with. It's really great. Where's our histogram here? Lost it. Histogram. We just have this really nice histogram, I think. A little extra space on each side, and it's just, got nice spikes of info. And good to go. So, coming up next would be local adjustments, local color, and cloning.